Keep yourself in the loop of everything football on the Golden State Media Concepts Football Podcast. The latest news on and off the field, be it college football, Big Ten, SEC, Big 12, Pac-12, ACC to the NFL. We've got you covered. Listen to the Golden State Media Concepts Football Podcast.
Alright, and welcome to the GSMC Football Podcast. This episode is brought to you by the GSMC Podcast Network, and as always, I am your host, Jesse Tapia. Alright, so now we are officially in week 3. This NFL season is going by too fast, man. I mean, it's already been 2 weeks. I don't like it. Off-season went by really fast. I need this NFL season to go by slow. But, I mean, we had the Monday night game taking place last night, obviously, it being Monday night. But let me tell you what we're doing for today. We'll be recapping that game for this first segment. Second segment, we'll talk about my takeaways from the games that happened over the weekend, talk about some teams. Third segment, we'll talk about NFL news. And then for the fourth segment, as I always do, I mean, we'll be talking about anything else going on in the world of football. And last night's game was pretty weird, just considering, I don't know, it seems like something was off about this game. And it might have just been me, but either way, I feel like both teams, I don't know, like I said, there's just something about the game I didn't really like. Either way, though, let's get into the stats. You got Chicago winning this one 24-17. Mitch Trubisky, 25 of 34 throwing the ball, 200 yards. 2 touchdowns, 2 interceptions there, was sacked twice. They couldn't really get the ball going. Couldn't really rush the ball well, talking about Chicago. Jordan Howard, 14 carries, 35 yards. Mitch Trubisky took off with it 5 times for 24 yards. Tariq Cohen had 4 carries for 8 yards. And Taylor Gabriel got some carries too, 3 carries for 17 yards. Receiving numbers, you had Allen Robinson, 10 receptions, 83 yards. I mean, that's a classic Jarvis Landry stat line right there. Jordan Howard, 3 catches, 33 yards. Taylor Gabriel, 4 catches, 30 yards. First half, Trubisky had Gabriel wide open. I mean, no one was really around him. And Trubisky ended up overthrowing him. If he would have hit Gabriel, I mean, in stride, Gabriel would have easily scored the touchdown. And the game would have been over before it started, but it didn't happen that way. Trey Burton got a touchdown, though, 4 receptions, 20 yards, and then caught a shovel pass near the goal line for a touchdown. You had Tariq Cohen with a catch for 17 yards, and then Anthony Miller, who had 2 catches for 11 yards, one of them being a touchdown. I'm not sure what it is with rookie receivers now, but it just seems like they aren't giving the immediate impact that they used to. And that's fine. I mean, I have no problem with it, but just a little observation made by me. I mean, I do think Anthony Miller will end up being the best receiver from this draft. I mean, it's a bold claim considering you got DJ Moore over in Carolina and Calvin Ridley over in Atlanta, but you think that there's a possibility of the Falcons letting Julio walk with them drafting Ridley in the first round? And I'm grasping for straws here. This is just more so something I literally just came up with in my head as I said that they drafted Calvin Ridley. Because, I mean, you look at it, and again, I mean, I doubt this happens. And they'd be better suited paying Julio. But you look at it, Julio's going to make a lot of money on his next deal. You look at the wide receivers currently and what they're making. Odell Beckham Jr. is currently at a 5-year, $90 million total deal with 65 of it guaranteed. I'd assume that Julio Jones is going to make much more than that. You just gave Matt Ryan his deal. You're paying him about $100 million guaranteed. Do you want to continue on with Julio Jones? Granted, he'll be... How old will Julio be? He's currently 29. He'll be 30. 31 by the time he needs a new deal. And again, I'm just grasping for straws here. But are you really going to give a 30-year-old, 31-year-old a third big contract? It's a question that needs to be asked. And again, I'm not saying they won't, and I'm not saying they'll let him walk. I'm just asking the question here. Just making you think a bit, working those brains. But either way, getting back to the game. Looking at Russell Wilson, he threw for 226 yards, completed 22 out of his 36 passes for 2 touchdowns and an interception, was sacked 6 times. Rashad Penny, 10 carries for 30 yards there. Chris Carson, 6 carries for 24 yards. And then you look at the receiving numbers. Tyler Lockett, 5 receptions for 60 yards and a touchdown. Brandon Marshall, yes, the Brandon Marshall, 4 receptions for 44 yards. Will Dissly, continuing on his hot streak, 3 receptions, 42 yards and a touchdown. Jaron Brown, 3 receptions for 36 yards. Nick Vannett, 3 catches, 23 yards. CJ Prosise, 3 catches, 22 yards. And that's just about it right there. So getting into the game itself, I mean, the Bears were basically the best team from start to finish. I ended up getting this pick wrong. I wanted to go with Russell Wilson. Thought they'd be able to get it done. They couldn't. The Bears, I think I just kind of underestimated them, oddly enough, considering how much I've been on their bandwagon since last season. But, I mean, you look at it, Russell Wilson ended up throwing a pick 6 to Prince Amukamara. I don't know what Russell Wilson was thinking on that throw. It wasn't like something where I guess Amukamara did bait him into throwing it, but if you're Russell Wilson, you got to be much smarter than that. I'm sorry. Okay? If you're this top 5 quarterback that everyone says you are, myself included, you can't be making throws like that. And Russell Wilson does tend to make a boneheaded mistake like that every now and then. I mean, that was one where you're down 17-10. You can't afford a pick 6. That just ends the game right there, and it did. I mean, yeah, you had Seattle losing by 7, but they didn't get that other touchdown till there was 13, 14 seconds left in the game. So, I mean, I don't put this game completely on Russell Wilson or anything like that. I mean, that pick 6 was awful. But, I mean, let's not forget the fact that the guy did get sacked 6 times, and he still has no running game. I mean, 3 yards a carry for Rashad Penny, and that one isn't great. Chris Carson really didn't get anything going. Wasn't really given an opportunity to get anything going, given they were down for most of the game. But, I mean, as far as Chicago goes, Trubisky threw for 200 yards. It's not necessarily great or anything like that. And I feel like we're seeing this a lot where quarterbacks coming into the league aren't throwing for over 350 yards or anything like that. And mainly because I think they don't have the ability to. I mean, you look at Dak Prescott, he'll never be that guy. Trubisky, I mean, so far shown that he's not really a guy who throws for over 300 yards. And you look at the rookies, they won't be like that. I mean, I don't know. I just feel like we're moving into a new age where quarterbacks aren't as good as they used to be. Like, quarterbacks are just getting worse, I think, these newer generations of them. But I'm not going to say Trubisky didn't play well, because he did play well. And that defense basically dominated yesterday. I see the Raiders currently have 2 total sacks over their first 2 games. The team. There's a certain guy in Chicago, I think his name's Khalil Mack. He's got 2 sacks himself. So would you look at that? Maybe the Raiders could use a guy like that, huh? And I know Raider fans are tired of these jokes, but you're going to keep hearing them. Why? Because you traded the best player on your team. But, yeah, looking at the Bears, I mean, Amukamara played well with the pick 6. Khalil Mack played well. Leonard Floyd. I mean, that whole defense is very good. And they're fast, too. They're quick to get to the ball. And, I mean, Chicago very well could have been 2-0 if they didn't completely shut down in that second half against Green Bay. I mean, yeah, what Rodgers did was legendary, but if you look at it, if Chicago just scores 1 touchdown in that second half, they basically win the game. I mean, of course, maybe Aaron Rodgers would have pulled something where he ends up topping that too, but I mean, yeah, all they needed to do was score a touchdown in that second half, and it would have been game over. But they weren't able to do it, so now they're 1-1. And I believe they're currently 3rd in their division. Granted that the Vikings and Packers each have a win and a tie, and I'm assuming that a tie is better than a loss. Detroit being 0-2, I think I'm pretty comfortable saying they'll be the last team in the division. Last place team in the division, excuse me. And I think I had the Vikings winning the division, Packers finishing in second, Bears in third, and Detroit in fourth. But either way, I mean, like I said, it just seemed like something was off with this Monday night game. I mean, the Bears offense looked good. Russell Wilson was above average in this game. But, yeah, he's got to do better, and there's no other way to put it. Like, I get your offensive line stinks. And can people stop saying, oh, well, they'd be better if they didn't pay Russell Wilson? I mean, how easy do you guys think it is to find a quarterback? I mean, sometimes I feel like fans just don't think. Like, what, you think you're going to find another Russell Wilson? It's going to take a while. I mean, fans should be happy about the fact that Russell Wilson is the quarterback for the Seattle Seahawks. Because, I mean, they don't get a Super Bowl without him. And they're like, oh, well, our defense got us there. Yeah, well, Russell Wilson also did too. But, what do I know, right? Not much. As far as who these teams got next, let's check that out. Chicago will be playing in Arizona, so they got a good chance to go 2-1. Let's see, the Seahawks next up, they have, I think they're playing Dallas next. And Dallas tends to play them well in Seattle every time they match up. So yeah, it'll be in Dallas. I mean, if Seattle ends up beating Dallas, they very well could be 2-2 after 4 games, and that could save their season. I think if they lose any of the next 2, then that might be it for Seattle, but we'll see what ends up happening. Like I said, next segment will be giving my takeaways from this weekend's NFL games, so stay tuned, and I will be right back.
The average sedan is built with a steel frame and equipped with 6 airbags. Remember this the next time you see someone walking. Drivers, be aware. Pedestrians don't have armor. A message from the California Office of Traffic Safety. The average SUV has 2 blind spots, weighs between 4,000 and 6,000 pounds, and takes about 6 seconds to stop. Remember this the next time you're on foot. Pay attention, people. Pedestrians don't have armor. A message from the California Office of Traffic Safety.
All right, and welcome back to the GSMC Football Podcast. Spent that first segment recapping the Monday Night Football game between Chicago and Seattle. Chicago winning that one 24-17. Now we move on to the second segment, and I've got thoughts now that Week 2 is in the books, so let me just go ahead and give those thoughts. So watching the Ravens-Bengals game and the rest of the teams in the AFC North play, the Bengals might just be currently the best team in that division. I mean, the Ravens, congrats, you beat up on Buffalo Week 1. That's not necessarily anything to brag about. You got beat pretty bad against the Bengals on Thursday. The Browns, I mean, no matter who you put on that team, you'll always be the Browns. You showed us that on Sunday against the Saints. The Steelers, you need Le'Veon. Your team seems to be falling apart. And it honestly seems like it might be the end. And then you got the Bengals, who are playing very good defense. Andy Dalton has played very well in his first 2 games. A.J. Green has been a monster so far. Joe Mixon is a big part of that offense and is very productive. He'll be out for the next 2 weeks, though, because I think he got a little procedure done on his knee. But either way, I mean, you look at this team, how can you say they're not the best team in the division currently, and they might just end up winning the division? I mean, it's possible, isn't it? Anyway, we move on. Falcons, your red zone issues still aren't fixed up just because you went 4-4 in the red zone as far as touchdowns this season or this week. I mean, you're not off the hook. Julio Jones still didn't catch a touchdown in this game. And that's still a problem. I mean, you can't expect to be consistent in the red zone when you're not even hitting your best player. At least I'd assume so. So I'm still saying the Falcons aren't off the hook yet. As far as the Panthers, I mean, Cam played well. Team played well. Defense could have been much better. Chargers, Austin Eckler, definitely a very good backup running back. Might be the best, I was going to say the best backup running back in the league, but I forget you got Tevin Coleman out there in Atlanta. But, I mean, Eckler's been a monster. Phillip Rivers played well in this last game. In Buffalo, you had a player retire on you in halftime. And I don't see how they win a game this year. Honestly. I mean, if you're having stories like this happen, this might just shape up to be one of the worst seasons in Bills history. Then we had another tie. We talked about it a bit yesterday. I'm done with ties. I don't need ties in the NFL. Ties in soccer, sure, whatnot, that's fine. But a tie in football, not great. Add another quarter, do something at least. Give me a field goal kicking competition if they're tied after the first overtime. First one to miss loses. Why don't we do it that way? All right, it'll make kickers a much more of a commodity, and it'll make the game funner, kind of like a penalty shootout. I mean, why not? Soccer does it when they do end up going extra time in the games that they can't tie in. You go to extra time, 2 15-minute periods or 2 15-minute halves. If no one ends up the winner after that, then you go to a penalty shootout. Let's integrate that into the NFL. No one takes the lead after the first overtime. We take it to the field goal. We take it to the field with the kickers. We'll start off from the 30-yard line. We'll move back and continuing moving back. I mean, the Ravens would never lose an overtime game. But, I mean, we need something. Because, like I said, I can't handle the ties out here. And also, Packer fans, stop complaining about Clay Matthews. Yes, that was a bad roughing the passer penalty. But let's not forget your defense did give up 22 points in the fourth quarter. So, I mean, you want to put some blame there? I think you should. Let's see, moving on. Titans definitely have a quarterback problem, meaning Blaine Gabbert was able to get them a win there. Marcus Mariota hasn't been good. Didn't play last week either. Browns and Saints, I mean, the Saints don't look good at all. I'd say they've looked the worst out of all 4 teams in the NFC South, and I did not think I'd be saying that this year, but here we are. I mean, the Bucs have looked much better than them. The Bucs beat them last week. Atlanta looks better than them, and so does Carolina. I mean, you struggled to beat a Browns team who, if not for their kicker, would have easily won this game. Dolphins, Jets. Stop believing the hype that the New York media is trying to sell you. Okay, Sam Darnold, yes, he will be a very good quarterback for the Jets at one point in time. But this isn't that time. The Jets aren't going over 500. And that's just the fact of the matter there. They'll be 6-10. As far as Miami goes, Ryan Tannehill is as confusing as it gets. I don't think he necessarily played extremely well against the Jets on Sunday, but this defense did a good enough job in order to get it done. Chiefs might have the next best thing in Patrick Mahomes. I mean, I think we could all say that now. Threw for 6 touchdowns, and one of the biggest pluses as far as him throwing for 6 touchdowns, it was all spread out. I think Travis Kelce came away with 2 touchdowns in this one. Either way, I mean, Tyreek Hill got one, Chris Conley got one, Demarcus Robinson got one. Patrick Mahomes seems like the next best thing. But, of course, we got to wait to see how the season progresses. Not too many teams have film on him also. And have you ever heard Patrick Mahomes talk? It kind of sounds like he's got a voice where, like, it's a post-puberty voice, but also a pre-puberty voice mixed together. Like, it's squeaky and deep at the same time. It's unlike any voice I've ever heard in my life. It's honestly kind of creeping me out. Like, the dude is like a little kid and a grown man as far as his voice. That's just an observation, too. Might be an odd observation, but it is an observation nonetheless. Eagles definitely need Carson Wentz, and they will be getting him back this week against the Colts. I mean, Nick Foles, that little honeymoon is over. Congrats. Thanks for getting us the Super Bowl. And I'm not an Eagles fan, but I'm saying that speaking in their terms. I mean, but you're done. Hit the bench. Hopefully the Eagles reward this guy with a nice little backup quarterback contract, maybe make him the highest paid backup in all in the NFL. But it's Carson Wentz time, and also they need Alshon Jeffrey. They have too many guys who are hurt at the wide receiver position. You You look at Tampa Bay. I mean, like I said, no one expected this. Definitely not me. They made me look like a fool. I was talking before the season as if it was pretty much already written in stone that they'd go 0-3. I mean, who would have expected them to beat the Saints, Eagles, and maybe possibly the Steelers in 3 weeks? Buccaneers fans, don't lie to me. I know you didn't think so. I know as soon as Jameis was suspended, you were pretty much, oh, well, I guess the season was nice looking forward to it, but it's over. And any fan who thought Ryan Fitzpatrick was going to do this is an absolute homer. I mean, come on now. Colts, when Andrew Luck is out there, they're a much better team. I mean, you have no business winning this game. You have no business being as good as you are. Defense isn't that great. Receivers, I mean, you got T.Y. Hilton after that. None of the guys really jump out at you. I like Jack Doyle. Offensive line is suspect, but Andrew Luck has this little thing where he's able to just elevate the play of his teammates. One of the last few quarterbacks who can do that. Redskins, I mean, yeah, you lost, but I'm still expecting them to be near the top in the NFC East. Cardinals, it's Josh Rosen time. We know what Sam Bradford is. You have no shot at winning anything with Sam Bradford. And maybe you don't want to rush Rosen in, but you got to make a change. I don't care if it's Mike Glennon. Do something. Get Bradford out of there. I mean, and also, why isn't the offense being ran through David Johnson? It's not that hard. It really isn't. Well, we'll see what ends up happening. Maybe we can get Bruce Arians out of the CBS booth and back with a headset on coaching the Cardinals. As for the Rams, I mean, they've played 2 bad teams to start out the season, but have handled business. Goff threw for over 354 yards, threw for a touchdown against the Cardinals. Brandon Cooks, 7 receptions for 159 yards. I mean, clear Super Bowl favorites right now, I'd say. At least that's what Vegas thinks. Lions, too little, too late here. I mean, you were never really in the game to begin with till the end of the fourth quarter. They got a lot of things they got to figure out, and I'm starting to fall back on Matt Stafford a bit. I mean, yes, stats are very important, but there's a point where wins also matter, and Stafford just isn't getting those wins. As for the 49ers, they're an 8-8, 7-9 team, 6-10 possibly. Jimmy Garoppolo doesn't look nearly as good as he did last season. Rightfully so. I mean, this is his first full year as an NFL starter. I do think he's a good quarterback, but isn't what he will be going forward. Raiders, I mean, you had this one. You were up 19-10 in the fourth, and you just happened to give up 10 points in the fourth quarter. That team needs a lot of help on the defensive line. It's clear, and John Gruden seems to have no answer for it. As for Denver, looks like you finally might have a quarterback. Case Keenum isn't going to throw for over 400 yards or anything like that, but will keep your team in games and will be good enough. Pats Jags, I mean, maybe, just maybe, the torch is getting passed here. Then again, I mean, the Pats want to go trade for Josh Gordon, which we'll talk about in the next segment. But the Jags look good, dominated, handled business. Jalen Ramsey backed himself up, all this talk. Rob Gronkowski, nowhere to be found in this one. Giants, Cowboys. Giants, I mean, might just be one of the worst teams in the league along with the Cardinals and Bills. Cowboys, Dak Prescott impressed me. Doesn't throw for a lot of yards or anything like that, but played much better. Offensive line cleaned up their problems. And I have no clue what to think of Dallas. I mean, week 1 they looked awful. Week 2 they looked very good. So I guess maybe there's a happy medium there. And then, of course, Bears. Seahawks, Russell Wilson's not going to be able to save you. And as for the Bears, they're a solid team. So we'll wrap it up there. Next up, we'll be talking Josh Gordon and the New England Patriots. So stay tuned, and I will be right back.
The average sedan is built with a steel frame and equipped with 6 airbags. Remember this the next time you see someone walking. Drivers, be aware. Pedestrians don't have armor. A message from the California Office of Traffic Safety.
All right, and welcome back to the GSMC football podcast. So far today, I recapped Monday Night Football, Bears beating the Seahawks 24-17. Last segment gave my takeaways for each team after week 2. And I was going to talk Josh Gordon and the Patriots for this segment. We'll move that over to the 4th. Why? Oh boy. What do we have here? Ed Boucher of the Pittsburgh Post-Gazette reported that Antonio Brown did not show up for work on Monday. Boy, oh boy. What do we have going on here in Pittsburgh? Obviously, we have problems. Obviously, things aren't so great. And I'm all for it. Okay? Pittsburgh has always been this team-first organization, and I get it. But eventually, maybe your players are going to get sick of it. And Antonio Brown seems to be one who's followed Le'Veon Bell. And I'm not expecting Antonio Brown to not play this week or anything like that. He'll be playing. Fantasy owners, don't worry. But you look at it, this is a problem. Should we go ahead and crown the Patriots as AFC champs already? Or do we still believe in the Jags? Because you know the Jags are your only hope. Our only hope. I mean, have the Texans shown you anything in these first 2 weeks that Deshaun Watson can be the guy to go far in the AFC playoffs? Maybe those Miami Dolphins, who are currently number 1 in the AFC East, maybe it's a different year for them. Maybe they're actually good. Maybe they knock off the Patriots. Maybe Patrick Mahomes does it. Wait, they have no defense. And Chiefs fans, I know you're not really thinking about it now, but let's say you do make the playoffs. You won't go far because you have no defense. Just letting you know now. I mean, you can get mad at me or you could accept it. Either way, that's what's going to happen. Maybe Phillip Rivers finally gets one over Tom Brady. I mean, Tom Brady has basically owned Phillip Rivers in his entire career. I don't think Rivers has ever beat Brady. Maybe this is the year. I mean, I did have the Chargers as the team to make it out the AFC. I also did have the Panthers making it out the NFC too, so I guess my picks are kind of But could this quite possibly be the year that Phillip Rivers gets it done? I mean, I'd say it's either going to be them or Jacksonville. Like I said, I don't expect the Chiefs to do anything considering, I mean, yeah, Patrick Mahomes is great, but they have no defense. And if you have no defense in the playoffs, you're going to struggle. Denver, give me a break. That's not going to happen. I mean, let's go team by team. AFC East. I mean, yeah, Miami's off to a hot start, but I don't expect them to overtake the Patriots this season. The AFC North, Cincinnati's going to end up winning that division. Cincinnati's going to end up losing their first playoff game because that's what they do. Pittsburgh, their locker room seems to be too fractured in order for them to do anything in the postseason. And maybe this is the final year we see Mike Tomlin coaching that team. There was always been talk about him not having a complete grasp on the locker room, and that's pretty evident right now. The Ravens stink. I mean, if they get to the playoffs, then they're as good as anyone, but I don't see that happening. The Browns, give me a break. AFC South, the Jags stand a chance. I'd say they stand the best chance. Tennessee's bad. Houston, I mean, Deshaun Watson's just not ready yet, it seems. And you got the Colts. Forgot about them. Maybe good old Andrew Luck ends up getting it done. I don't know. And then you look at the AFC West, like I said, Chiefs have no defense. Denver won't do it. Oakland stinks. And I guess, yeah, it's the Chargers and Jags who stand a chance of beating the Patriots in the playoffs. But that's it. It's a shame. But yeah, you look at Pittsburgh, I mean, they've always told me how Pittsburgh is this top-notch organization. Nothing ever goes wrong there. They keep everything in-house. And it seems like the foundation for that top-notch organization is starting to crumble a bit. I mean, Le'Veon Bell's not there. Doesn't seem like he'll be there anytime soon. Obviously, Antonio Brown didn't show up today. At least that's what's being reported. And if you're a Steelers fan, I think it's time to hit the panic button. Honestly, this isn't one where you're just kind of worried, like, oh, it'll be better. Like, no, the locker room is done, I think. I mean, if Antonio Brown's not showing up to work today, then obviously something went very wrong. And could this be a season where the Steelers end up not making the playoffs? I won't go and say all that. But I mean, have they shown you anything so far in these first 2 weeks that shows that this team can bounce back? I mean, week 1, you tied with the Browns. Week 2, you lost to the Chiefs. And let's not forget that they have no defense either, talking about the Steelers. So you're going into a season where the best running back in the league isn't there. Your receiver's not showing up for practice after week 2. And your defense thinks out loud. Plus, Big Ben seems like he might just not have it anymore. I mean, I don't know. This pretty much feels like a loss on Monday night to the Buccaneers, if you ask me. I mean, how could it not be? You get Fitzpatrick, who's been playing well. Deshaun Jackson, who's been playing well. Mike Evans. And the Steelers are pretty much in shambles right now. And let's take a look. Vegas actually has Pittsburgh favored by 1.5. I mean, you got to imagine that that's going to change over the week, right? I mean, why wouldn't it? How can you say after these first 2 weeks and after everything that's gone down in Pittsburgh with Le'Veon Bell and now Antonio Brown, how could you say that they should be the favorites being on the road also? I mean, looking at it, as of right now, my way too early pick is the Bucs for that game. Obviously, something's going really wrong in Pittsburgh, and I'm not sure how they're going to fix that up. I mean, like I said, it just seems like a fractured locker room, and how can you fix up a fractured locker room? You really can't. And let's take a look at the rest of Pittsburgh's schedule. And maybe Le'Veon Bell is the saving grace for this team. Maybe when he comes back, all the problems will be fixed. But, I mean, you can't necessarily count on that either. So they got the Bucs in Tampa Bay next week on Monday Night Football. Then you got the Ravens. That's a Sunday night game. And then you play in the Falcons. I mean, that's tough. Then you're in Cincinnati. You got to play the Browns again. In Baltimore. Playing the Panthers. In Jacksonville. In Denver. Playing the Chargers. In Oakland. Playing the Patriots. In New Orleans. And then you finish off with the Bengals. I mean, I joked earlier about them not making the playoffs. That very well could happen. I mean, the Raiders are a bad team on their schedule. The Browns are a bad team on their schedule. We saw Pittsburgh struggle with them. The Ravens always give them a tough game, and I'm not really expecting them to win that game against the Bucs. I mean, yeah. Might be a bold prediction, but I don't think the Steelers are going to make the playoffs. It seems like there's way too much going on right now, way too many distractions that's affecting them. I'm curious to see what Mike Tomlin has to say about Antonio Brown not showing up today. I mean, maybe he got sent home. Maybe Tomlin called him and just gave him the day off. But, I mean, you also got Antonio Brown quoting that tweet from that fan, basically saying, trade me. Because everyone wants to pretty much negate what Antonio Brown has done. Steeler fans, I mean, they don't really use their heads too much. They're too brainwashed as far as, oh yeah, we follow the team, players don't really matter. I'll never understand that. But you push a guy enough, and they're going to want to leave. I'm not saying Antonio Brown's going to request a trade or anything like that, but you got to keep your top guys healthy, and the Steelers are happy, and the Steelers just haven't done that. That's how the name of the game goes. You keep your top guys happy, and everything will be cool. They haven't with Le'Veon Bell, and it seems they're not with Antonio Brown. So it'll be interesting to see how the rest of the season plays out, but I'm going to go bold prediction. They're not making the playoffs this year. I'd say they lose to Tampa Bay. That makes them 0-2-1. Whatever, they can beat the Ravens. That's 1-2-1. I'll say they lose to the Falcons. That's 1-3-1. They'll lose to Cincy in Cincy 1-4-1. They'll beat the Browns at home 2-4-1. I'd say they lose to Baltimore on the road 2-5-1. They'll lose to the Panthers 2-6-1. Lose to the Jags 2-7-1. I'll say they beat Denver. That's 3-7-1. They'll lose to the Chargers, 3-8-1. They can beat the Raiders, 4-8-1. They'll lose to the Patriots, 4-9-1. Lose to the Saints, 4-10-1. And then you'll beat the Bengals, 5-10-1. I could see that happening for the Steelers. I mean, like I said, their schedule isn't necessarily favorable, but we'll see what ends up happening. But that's all I got to say about the Steelers. Next up, we will be talking about anything else going on in the world of football. So stay tuned, and I will be right back.
The average SUV has 2 blind spots, weighs between 4,000 and 6,000 pounds, and takes about 6 seconds to stop. Remember this the next time you're on foot. Pay attention, people. Pedestrians don't have armor. A message from the California Office of Traffic Safety.
All right, and welcome back to the GSMC Football Podcast. So far today, we've talked Monday Night Football. Second segment gave my takeaways from each team for Week 2. And the third segment, we talked about Antonio Brown not showing up to work on Monday for the Steelers. Obviously not great. But anyway, we move on, and why do teams consistently help out the Patriots? Like, year after year, something just seems to go their way. I mean, I figured these teams in the AFC would be pretty tired of their dominance. It's a theory. But, I mean, it just seems like maybe they don't care, I guess. I mean, you're telling me that the Browns, who shipped off Josh Gordon for a 5th-round pick, couldn't get a better deal anywhere else? Or couldn't have traded him anywhere else? I mean, honestly. No one else was offering a 5th-round pick. And I think if Gordon's able to stick around and the Patriots get a 7th-round pick back, I mean, I don't hate this move for the Browns. I think it's a move they had to make. People are going to kill them for it, and Josh Gordon probably will play really well for the Patriots. But, like I said, it's a move the Browns had to make. I mean, you guys all want to get high and mighty when teams keep around players with off-the-field issues. But when they trade one away because of his off-the-field issues, now you guys want to bash the Browns for it? Is that how this is going to work? Are we going to forget that Josh Gordon before has been suspended for 2 seasons due to failed drug tests? Are we going to forget the fact that, this past week he hurt his hamstring at a non-team promotional shoot? Or how about him showing up late to the team facilities? Eventually, you got to say enough is enough. Cleveland's trying to change the culture around there, and guys like that aren't going to help it. Josh Gordon, no doubt, has all the talent in the world, but there's a point where Cleveland's got to make a decision, and they did. So like I said, why aren't we keeping the same energy that we do when teams want to keep their players with off-the-field issues? There's no consistency there, is there? The Browns are going to get smashed for this trade, especially if Gordon has an incredible season. Gordon's going to make the playoffs. Gordon will probably be huge in the playoffs. Maybe he wins a Super Bowl this year. And for those of you that keep comparing this to the Randy Moss deal, how lazy can you be? Honestly. How is this even remotely similar? Randy Moss's off-the-field issues were here way before he even got to Marshall. Supposed to go to Florida State. I think he got arrested. Then ended up having to go to Marshall. And I think in the NFL, he was pretty not good off the field. I don't remember Randy Moss getting arrested or anything like that, or Randy Moss getting suspended due to failed drug tests or anything like that. So how on earth is this like Randy Moss? Is it because both are just super talented and the Patriots got super talented receivers? Maybe. But it feels like people are trying to act as if Randy Moss had off-the-field issues, and that's why this is similar when, like I said, that's not the case. And also, Randy Moss is the best to ever do it. Josh Gordon is very good when he's actually on the field. So let's pump the brakes a bit. Let's stop with the Randy Moss comparisons. Randy Moss trade comparisons. And looking at Randy Moss's first year with New England, I mean, he had 98 receptions, 1,500 yards, 23 touchdowns. Literally, all the Patriots had to do was send him on a go route, and there was no stopping him. All Brady had to do was throw the ball up in the air, and you knew Randy Moss was coming down with it. Literally, I remember that season. Every time Brady threw the ball deep, you knew who was on the receiving end of it, and you knew who was going to come down with it. And every time, it was Randy Moss. I feel like we don't give enough credit to Randy Moss' first 3 years in New England. I mean, the next 3 he had 69 receptions for 1,000 yards, 11 touchdowns. 2009, he had 83 receptions for over 1,200 yards, 13 touchdowns. And I guess Bill Belichick does really know when to get rid of him. Because after that, I mean, Randy Moss didn't really do anything. He went to Minnesota for a bit. That didn't really work out. Went to Tennessee for a bit. That didn't really work out. And then he ended up finishing his career with San Francisco. He caught, I think it was 28 passes there, 434 yards, and 3 touchdowns. Played in the Super Bowl. Shame he never won one, but either way, I mean, Super Bowls don't really matter when it comes to receivers. But like I said, I mean, stop comparing this Josh Gordon trade to the Randy Moss one, please. I mean, it's not even close to the same. Just because Randy came from a bad situation in Oakland does not mean he's Josh Gordon or anything like that. As far as my thoughts on what this means for the Patriots, what this means, they have no more receiver problems. I mean, it's already fixed up. Gordon's the number 1, Edelman's the number 2. You throw Chris Hogan as the number 2, Edelman in the slot, and then you got Gronk. I mean, any problem this team had on the offensive end is fixed up. And as far as that hamstring injury that I mentioned, I guess according to the NFL Network, that Patriots gave him an MRI. Hamstring is fine. Most likely will be playing on Sunday. I got him on my fantasy team. I'm not going to be playing him. Just because of the fact, I mean, you really think he's going to learn the playbook within a week and be ready to go and put up all kinds of numbers? I know there's a lot of you who can't wait to play Josh Gordon this Sunday. And I might be wrong. Maybe he does go off. But like I said, if he does, that's fine. I'm okay with having him on the bench. I'll just plug him in next week. Because there's more so a chance of me playing him and him not doing well than I say me sitting him and him doing very well. Just my 2 cents there. Well, yeah, Miami Dolphin fans can't even enjoy them being 2-0. First place in the AFC East, but now Gordon's over with New England. That's a whole nother problem you got to deal with. Xavier Howard, when they play New England in 2 weeks. Ooh, that's going to be good. Gordon's going to spend the week learning the playbook and all that. Probably won't do much on Sunday. And I say his first game where he's full go for the Patriots is going to be against Miami. And there's an opportunity where Miami is 3-0 at that time, given they play the Raiders this week, and the Raiders just haven't looked as good as the Dolphins so far to start the season. Let's see, who do the Patriots got this week? I'm curious, do they play Buffalo yet, or is that... Oh, they played Detroit. So yeah, the Patriots got Detroit. And then, like I said, they got Miami in New England after that. Actually, they play Detroit on Sunday night this week. We're really giving Detroit 2 primetime games within the first 3 weeks, aren't we? I don't really like that. Detroit just hasn't looked good either. I mean, they look bad where maybe it's too early to say, but if they don't pick it up, Matt Patricia could be gone after this season. I mean, it's not completely unheard of for teams to fire head coaches after one season. There's a point where, I mean, you got much worse and there was no improvement. What's the point of keeping the guy around? Honest question. So there's that. Deshaun Jackson was asked about his thoughts on Ryan Fitzpatrick, whether or not he should start when Jameis comes back. He said, yeah, right now Fitzpatrick is hot. And he's true. He's right. I mean, I guess now you kind of got to go with Fitzpatrick because he currently gives you the best opportunity to win. I mean, we'll see what ends up happening with Jameis, but you look at Fitzpatrick, you got to start him until he turns into Ryan Fitzpatrick. Eventually, he is going to have that game where he throws for 4 interceptions. And after that game is when you throw Jameis Winston in and let him finish things out. But until then, I don't think you can go 2-0, 2-1, 3-0, and put Fitzpatrick back on the bench for Jameis Winston. Because let's say you start out 3-0, you beat Pittsburgh Monday night, you sit Fitzpatrick since Jameis is back, and Jameis just starts losing. First 3 games were a complete waste because you could have avoided that. So it'll be interesting, but it's also interesting to see that Deshaun Jackson pretty much said, yeah, Fitzpatrick needs to be the starter. So we'll see what ends up happening in Tampa, but either way, we're going to go ahead and wrap it up here for today. Today we talked Monday Night Football, gave my takeaways for each team after week 2. Third segment talked Antonio Brown, and then for this one talked Josh Gordon. So like I said, thanks for listening to the GSMC Football Podcast. As always, I am your host, Jesse Tapia. I will be back tomorrow, so stay tuned, and I will talk to you guys later.
You've been listening to the Golden State Media Concepts Football Podcast, part of the Golden State Media Concepts Podcast Network. You can find this show and others like it at www.gsmcpodcast.com. Download our podcast on iTunes, Stitcher, SoundCloud, and Google Play. Just type in GSMC to find all the shows from the Golden State Media Concepts Podcast Network, from movies to music, from sports to entertainment, and even weird news. You can also follow us on Twitter and on Facebook. Thank you, and we hope you have enjoyed today's program.